this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody. I am joined alongside my special guest, Advaith Kumar. And today we are hitting on the Chicago Bears news from this recent weekend. A lot of good news came about from Justin Fields as he has his new favorite target. Damiere Byrd had a very strong weekend in pads coming back from a heel injury that we talked about in our last episode. David Montgomery was plowing through the defense, which obviously the Chicago Bears defense is a very tough group to go through, and he was making it look like a piece of cake. Alec Ogletree, the free agent that we signed in the middle of last week due to Josh Woods' injury, is an interception machine, having 6 interceptions in his first 4 days as a Chicago Bear. Robert Quinn is back, making the injury report a little bit lower. Some guys are getting back on the field like Desmond Trufant as he is back to limited. So it's looking like we're starting to get back from the injury bug, even though the offensive line is struggling. There are new faces on the offensive line. We're going to jump into that in a minute and more from Bears training camp. But before we begin, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Stupid Car Tray. Tired of your pizza topping sliding, office coffee distracting you while driving, grease and other stains getting on your seat, or you're just enjoying a game on the couch and don't want to lean over? Look no further than the Stupid Car Tray. Proudly USA made, Stupid Car Tray makes your passenger seat or couch a level surface for all transportation and couch potato needs. With accessories like the Stupid Seat Anchor, hand sanitizer bottle, or 100% silicone grip mat, your tray is the ultimate car organizer. With over 20 different color combinations, there's a Stupid Car Tray for everyone. Visit www.stupidcartray.com and use discount code J16 to get 16% off your entire order. Link in the description. Less mess, less stressful driving experience. The Chicago Bears injuries, as stated before, brings enough stress to us anyway, but Stupid Car Tray does not. But before we get into our episode, quick shout out to Jimbo Covert on officially being inducted into the National Football Hall of Fame this past weekend. Super Bowl champion with the Bears. He spent his entire career with the Bears from 1981 to 1993. He started 110 of 111 career games. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler, an 80s decades all-team member, and a beast of a man. Congratulations to him. Enough talking from me. Advaith, are you ready to jump into this episode, my man?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's get to it.
All right, let's get to it. First topic of conversation, obviously, Justin Fields had himself a weekend. Does this make him the starter? No, not at all. He's still definitely growing as a young rookie quarterback in the NFL, but he hit a lot of big strides this weekend after we talked about he needed to get up to the speed of the NFL, and he definitely showed that this weekend. So I'm going to go over some highlights real fast about Andy Dalton and Justin Fields, and we're going to come back to you to get some of your reaction. How does that sound?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's go over some of the highlights from Justin Fields. Sidearm throws were on point. Go check out Bears Instagram and Twitter. It looked absolutely beautiful on the move. Quick side throws, accurate spiral, you name it, he had it. He had good movement in and out of the pocket when needed, especially when under pressure. He worked very well on his feet when needed, did not get happy feet, throw the ball out of bounds, or anything that could have put him in a bad position. And he looked good, again, under pressure. He could be which could be a lot due to the offensive line being banged up. And again, this offensive line has their hands full with the Chicago Bears defense going up against them, but Justin Fields was able to handle that very well. Now let's go into Andy Dalton, who had a bit of a rough weekend compared to what we've been talking about very highly of him at training camp. He was picked off a few times. It happens. It's training camp. He's not going to be perfect because if the defense is not going after the ball, that means that we could be saying that the defense is not playing well. But Andy Dalton was picked off more than usual this past weekend. He looked sharp in the 7-on-7 drills, struggled against various different defensive packages that he needs to get familiar with, but also he needs to be able to be more focused within the offense. He has learned the playbook very quickly, according to Matt Nagy and our offensive coordinator, Bill Lazor, but there is still a lot to learn from a guy who is, trying to get up to speed as fast as he can to be the week 1 starter. He still is comfortable in the mentor role, though. Here's the comparison. And Advaith, this could be my first question to you. I'm going to say a couple comparisons. I want to see what you think and if you have any different comparisons in regards to Andy Dalton. Dalton has the arm of Jay Cutler, accuracy of Jay Cutler, feet familiar to Mitchell Trubisky. Not as fast because due to his age, he's a lot older of a guy now. But back in the day, he did. But he still has that ability to go around, make plays. But he is the game manager that the Chicago Bears have been missing for a very long time. Jay Cutler struggled with that. Mitchell Trubisky definitely struggled with that. Rex Grossman wasn't even close to that. So, Advaith, kind of like give me, I know I said a couple names there, but if you had to put Bears quarterbacks together over the last 2 decades, how would Andy Dalton compare to them and what would the comparison be?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I didn't start watching the Bears since Cutler's last few years here. So I'm just gonna compare Andy Dalton to Jay Cutler and Mitchell Trubisky. So when I compare Andy Dalton towards them, first of all, if I had to say who's the best quarterback between those three, I would put like start bench cut, right? I would say, okay, I'm probably gonna start Jay Cutler. I'm probably gonna bench Andy Dalton, and I'm gonna cut Mitchell Trubisky. So those are my three quarterback rankings. And yeah, I think that Andy Dalton is much better than Mitchell Trubisky, despite what people might think. I mean, you look at the numbers, they do tell Mitchell is better. But from what I'm seeing, at least compared to what we saw last year, Andy Dalton is a much better quarterback than Mitchell Trubisky. He's executing the playbook a lot better. And to me, I think Andy Dalton just has to be a game management. He just has to be, the Chicago Bears version of Jimmy Garoppolo, because that's all we need right now. And we don't need anything flashy as of yet, because that's whenever we just need a game manager until Justin's ready. And then Justin can be that game manager and he can be that franchise quarterback that we know him to be. So I'll probably say that Andy Dalton is very similar to what the 49ers have in Jimmy Garoppolo. And in fact, our quarterback room is probably just like the 49ers. We have our version of Jimmy Garoppolo and then our version of Trey Lance in Justin Fields.
That's a great comparison. I'm happy you did the start bench cut. I think a lot of people can definitely agree with you in regards to who they would cut, but it's definitely a good topic of conversation to have on who you would rather have starting. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, who knows? Your perspective could change after this season if Andy Dalton does do very well, and we're hoping for the best from him. But thanks for sharing that. That was a very good comparison, Advaith. Thank you. I like that a lot. I know, Advaith, just the last guy we're going to hit on real fast, Nick Foles, he's starting to struggle a little bit, even against the third stringers. So his trade value is unfortunately starting to go down a little bit. But if you had to say, if you're the Colts and you're in your quarterback situation with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles is the guy that you should be going after, what would you be trading for Nick Foles at this moment?
I think that's a hard question, but I would probably say based on Nick Foles' contract, and we have to discuss his contract, that's I think $4 million a year. And that's not too bad for a second string quarterback. I mean, we're paying Andy Dalton $10 million a year. But again, that is a hefty contract. The Colts have other quarterbacks at hand, that they can get. So, I may be offering the Bears like a 5th round pick, a 6th round pick, but I'm going to take upon that offer. So yeah, I think a 6th round pick would suffice as long as we get Nick Foles off this team. I'm happy. I'm sure everyone who's watching this video are happy. I'm sure you're happy, Nick, and I'm sure your co-host London is also happy. Just we need to get rid of Nick Foles. I don't know why he's on this team. And just talk about Nick Foles a little bit. I think maybe we never covered Nick Foles' press conference in our last podcast that we did together, but he was mad. He was saying, yeah, I'm a better quarterback than I was in the Super Bowl. And then he just gets picked up by Alex Ogletree. And I mean, sorry, Nick Foles, but it does not seem like you're Super Bowl Nick. So I think right now, Nick Foles' value, he's really trashing it. He's probably worth at least a 6th, 5th round pick, but but the Colts would take upon his contract with that.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the Bears are also in a cap situation. They have to pay Allen Robinson next season when they are able to talk to him again about a long-term deal. They cannot talk to him because of the fact that the franchise tag deadline went by. You got to talk to Akeem Hicks. You have to talk to a lot of these players on the roster within the next couple of months in regards to their contract situation. When you have that much cap being chewed up by your third string quarterback, it's not usually very healthy for the sheet. So I agree. I would take a 5th round pick, every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I would take a 6th round pick for Foles as long as the cap's gone. So I'm with you. And I don't think he's the same quarterback anymore either. Nice guy, great guy for the community. He did win a Super Bowl MVP, but he's not the same. So, let's go to a lighter topic in regards to the Chicago Bears. The targets for the quarterbacks continue to be strong against a very talented defense. The defense is not nearly as banged up, knock on wood, as the offense in regards to the offensive line. But, Eddie Goldman still is out. Danny Trevathan has been on and off the field. He's not limited, but he's just, they're giving him veteran time off to heal up. Robert Quinn obviously hasn't been fully healthy. Desmond Trufant hasn't been fully healthy. Tayshaun Gibson hasn't been fully healthy. A lot of limited guys, but the wide receivers and the running backs and the tight ends are still doing very well against this defense. So Darnell Mooney obviously probably is one of the most talked about wide receivers right now in regards to training camp. Matt Nagy said he is on fire, breaking defenders' ankles, really getting the deep ball, making some spectacular catches, and being the quarterback's favorite target. So that's really good to see. Honestly, a lot of people are making the argument that he could be breakout player of the year in the NFL. So stay tuned for that. We're hoping for the best for Mooney. Allen Robinson is also having a super strong cap, not a deep ball threat. We kind of talked about this last time, but he is not a deep ball threat, but he's just showing his ability of having flashiness and his overall athletic ability to be what we need in a as a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. David Montgomery, like we said earlier, is bulldozing over the defense, looking very strong for this upcoming season. He still has a chip on his shoulder for not being even considered a top 20 running back, even though Madden only ranked him in 82. A lot of people could defend the fact that Montgomery could at least be an 85, 86. I could reach out to my good friend, Adam Kinross. I'm sure he might be listening today. I would love to see his comment below of what he thinks David Montgomery's rating is. I could be biased. He's much more the Madden expert. Go make sure you check out his channel. His link will be in the description. And here's something, Advaith, that's super cool that I'm very happy for this guy, and we are big rookie fans on this show, is Khalil Herbert looks like he's going to be the number one punt returner this upcoming season for the Chicago Bears. So look for him to be lower on the running back chart, but he is looking to be that number one guy because when special teams goes out there for first teams, Khalil Herbert is catching the punts. So out of all that information and anything else that you've seen on Twitter or from Instagram or anything this past weekend, what has made you the most happy in regards to this Bears offense from this past weekend?
I probably would say that what I'm really happy about is that David Montgomery is getting the touches because last year, Matt Nagy, for some odd reason, never really handed the ball to David Montgomery, even though he had a quarterback like Mitchell Trubisky. So I'm really happy that David Montgomery is getting the touches. I'm really happy that I'm seeing a guy like Khalil Herbert. I think some people on Twitter were comparing him to like Jordan Howard, and like to see Khalil Herbert have those comparisons. And I think Khalil Herbert he's kind of like Terry Cohen and Jordan Howard mix because he's fast, but he can also break tackles and he can push through that. So I like that about him. I liked how I haven't really heard how Daz Newsome was doing, but I did watch some of his press conference. Happy that he is getting the touches. He's coming back. He feels healthy. So I like that. And yeah, I would probably say Darnell Mooney's excelling. And Damian Williams, we talked about him on my podcast, but we never talked about him on your podcast. Damian Williams doing really, really good. And he's proving to be a valuable asset for this team. So overall, other than that offensive line, I'm really, really happy with what we have. And if your listeners are interested, I will be having an in-depth analysis over the offensive line coming out today. This is like my accountability thing. So stay tuned for that. I'm going over what each offensive lineman's injury is, how long they'll be out for, and then guys we can sign. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Yeah, Advaith, I think that's great. I know we only have a certain amount of time for today's podcast, but everyone, please make sure Advaith's handle is right under his name on YouTube. It just is it is just Advaith Kumar. So very excited. Make sure you stay tuned for that and reach out and look at his episode. He gives a lot of great insight. So happy to see we're getting more of an in-depth analysis on these injuries and how serious they are. I know a lot of people are curious about Tevin Jenkins. And Advaith, you set it up perfectly because our next topic of conversation is the offensive line. They are doing whatever they can to stay alive. So I'm happy that you're on because you can give maybe some quick high points on it before we go into the defense. But the Bears signed former Clemson offensive lineman Gage Cervenka via Brad Briggs. This makes 10 active linemen able to practice on the roster, whether that be limited or full go. Tevin Jenkins is still out with a back injury. This is very hard for Bears fans. This is even harder for the team. We are wishing that he gets better as soon as possible. Advaith, do you have any more information in regards to just it being a back injury, or is this much more serious than that the media is making it out to be?
Yeah, I think he just suffered a setback. I was into the Adam and Hodge podcast, and basically it talks about how Tevin was pulling a golf cart, how he was pulling a sled up Walter Payton Hill. And to me, if he did have back issues, like many people are saying that he has like he has a herniated disc. And I don't know if he could be able to do that if he had a herniated disc. My thing is like Tev hopefully can return this week, like later this week. I think he just suffered a setback, and he was also on an elliptical on Saturday, I believe, and Sunday. And those are things that you just don't do if you have back tightness. And then in terms of the guy that we recently signed, I'm slipping on his name right now, but he was one of the strongest offensive linemen coming out of Clemson. And that was really promising. I think he played center for Clemson, but I can't be too sure on that. So
you are correct. You are correct.
Yeah.
Sorry. He was an interior lineman. He wasn't an exterior lineman. He was an interior.
Yeah, and he was very, very strong. He's 6'6", I believe. He's really big. I think that he's more of a camp body. Personally, I would like to see the Bears go and get someone like Russell Okung or others. But I'm curious to see what Ryan Pace does here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's some great insight. And I didn't hear about him pushing a golf cart or a sled up Walter Payton Hill. So that just shows the pure strength of Tevin Jenkins. So I am hoping that he has a speedy recovery. I'm hoping for the best for him. So stay tuned for that, and make sure you go look at Advaith's channel, as he's going to jump more into that later, as we are running low on time here. So let's go through the defense super fast. Advaith, injuries, we might just skip today because it's just let's have a positive note. There's a lot of positive notes from the defense, but let's start with the only negative that isn't as much of a negative as people are making it out to be, according to Roquan Smith himself. But Roquan Smith did suffer a groin injury this past weekend, and Deion Bush sat out for about half of practice, but came back. So Deion Bush is back in pads, back wearing a helmet. He is good to go. He was out for a little bit. I know a lot of people were scared for him because he is fighting to be cornerback number 2 on this team. But Roquan Smith has been sitting out due to the fact that he doesn't want to tweak the groin anymore. He says, I can play. I feel good. It's just a little sore, a little tweaked, and coaches want me to just take it easy. Take all the time you need. We don't need it because we got a guy named Alec Ogletree absolutely ripping it up. We'll get into him in just a second. But Matt Nagy even said in the most recent press conference, Roquan is obsessed with football. He is obsessed with being the best linebacker in the league because of what happened last year, getting absolutely snubbed of an All-Pro, a Pro Bowl, all the awards he could have won. So Roquan Smith is going to be 100% pedal to the metal this season. So please do not be worried about it, as the Bears are taking every precaution possible, as they should, wishing Roquan a quick and speedy recovery. Now, Alec Ogletree is playing out of his mind right now. Signed with the Bears last Tuesday, 6 days in. He already has 4 days in officially on the roster for 6 days, has 6 interceptions. That is unheard of. Yes, he's playing against a guy named Nick Foles. Yes, he's playing against a guy named Justin Fields. He hasn't played against Andy Dalton yet, but he's shocking a lot of people. So stay tuned for him. I think that he's going to make the 53-man roster. Advaith, I'm going to ask you in a couple of questions, but I'm just going to go through everything really fast here. Jalen Johnson had some really big hits, looked very strong at CB1. Looks like that injury and the surgery that he had this past offseason isn't affecting him, knock on wood. Hoping for the best. Eddie Jackson is still out. Officially, they released more information. It was a non-football related injury to his hamstring. They're keeping caution on him. Hopefully that comes back. But hamstring is an injury you don't mess around with, like any other injury. But obviously hamstring can bug you for months on end. So let him get healed. Let him work with the trainers. Let him get some work put on it. But let him back. But Robert Quinn is back. Robert Quinn is back from injury. He's alongside Khalil Mack, and they are living in the backfield. Robert Quinn's on a little bit more of the limited side, but he is hitting guys. He's looking, and, he's helping Khalil Mack unlock his potential because guys have to worry about Robert Quinn as well. Khalil Mack is looking the best he ever has, according to many sources and fans, and that's because of Sean Desai. They are working together. Tune in for our Instagram post tomorrow. Our handle is below. But, Advaith, 2 quick things. One, how do you feel about Eddie Jackson being hurt? I know that it's a big injury to this team, but also Alec Ogletree. How do you feel about this guy? Do you want him to make the roster, or do you think this is just a training camp one-hit wonder?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about Eddie Jackson. He is Unlike Kevin Jenkins, Eddie Jackson is a veteran. He knows how to run things, and he's a guy who's going to play week one. No matter what injury he's dealing with, he has that in him. He has that experience playing NFL with an injury, so I'm not too worried about that. If it does get concerning, I will worry. And then addressing your question about Alex Ogletree, yeah, that man has been insane. I mean, people are talking about how he can become the linebacker opposite Roquan Smith. I don't think he's there just yet. But I would like to see him in some sets, when Danny Trevathan does rest, maybe as an extra linebacker in some place. I know Sean Desai is going to do whatever he can to have Alex Ogletree play in there, so I'm really excited for him. And then quickly on Kendall Bledora has been really insane, and then Travis Gibson has also been really good too. So I'm really excited to see what our young pieces do in this Bears offense.
Yeah, and I'm happy you hit on Gibson really fast. A lot of limited guys. Desmond Trufant is back to limited. Tayshaun Gibson is back to limited. Michael Joseph is back to limited. So a lot of the injury report is still exactly the same. Unfortunately, we're hoping to get some of the COVID guys back once they pass COVID protocol by the NFL. So stay tuned for that. But a lot of good news this weekend for the Chicago Bears overall. Very happy to see that this team is progressing and becoming more ready. And hey, they play football this week. They play against the Miami Dolphins this week. Very exciting news. We are super excited to see what they put on the field, as Matt Nagy is hinting that he's going to play a lot of the starters. So stay tuned for that. But Advaith, as always, thanks for coming on, man. You always have great insight. I'm very excited to listen to your podcast later today.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for inviting me, Nick. It was truly an honor. And thank you guys for the support here on Just Another Huge Chicago. Your fans are amazing. So shout out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. They are amazing. We're very happy to hear from them, and we're happy that they're going over to your channel as well. So stay tuned for Advaith's episode, and we're happy that you guys are listening to this one. But with that, thank you very much for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody, joined alongside my co-host and special guest, Advaith Kumar, and we will see you guys next time.